Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Creepy Fox Podcast, the show in the series where we go ahead and relive and retell subscriber stories that have been sent in by all of you. And do we have another good one for you all today, as this time we'll be covering some scary stories and experiences that come from the wilderness. This is going to combine stories about fishing, camping in the woods, and even encountering some pretty creepy and scary individuals out in the middle of nowhere. So make sure you got your supplies ready because we're in for quite the chills. Now, as a quick reminder, you still got a couple of more weeks to check out the Creepy Fox Christmas Fox design. It's only going to be available for the rest of this month, and after this month, it won't be available again until December of 2022, so make sure to act fast before they disappear. You can check it out right below the video player. Also, speaking of below the video player, if you'd like to go ahead and donate, you can go ahead and do so to the St. Jude's charity that I'm running. It's a nice way for all of us to come together, support a good cause, and raise awareness for cancer treatments for children. Now, let's get on to the stories, and I'll see you all at the end. Enjoy. Back when I was still living at home with my mom and dad, something I enjoyed doing was going out with my friends. Fishing was our pastime, and when we weren't studying for exams or going to college, you could find us out by the lake, enjoying a cold, refreshing drink and having a good time. We have plenty of stories of some of the most hilarious moments you can think of, such as the time my buddy Ryan slipped off the dock and into the water after he yelled up to the sky complaining his fish had gotten away, or the time I screamed like a little girl because I'd gotten scared over a large cutout of a bear. But I know what you're here for. You're here for the scary stories, the incidents that really changed us, and that really proved that you just don't know who or what you might encounter when you're at your most vulnerable. So, okay, let's get started with that. It was late 2009. Myself, my friends Ryan and Jacob are out by the lake in a set of woods near my house. This lake is visited by locals, but as we chose to go late in the evening, approximately 9 p.m., all was quiet. With us was also my little brother Angel, who I wanted to bring out with the boys, as his girlfriend of 3 years had cheated on him, and he was feeling really down at the time. Plenty of sodas and hot dogs roasting over a campfire. We're laughing and talking, when all of a sudden, Angel points to something in the tree line a short distance from where we sat by the lake. Angel tells us that he was almost certain he saw the outline of a person, and he thought perhaps I had invited another friend of mine to join us. I told him no, and soon I called out to the darkness hoping to get some sort of answer. All we were met by was the sound of the wind blowing through the trees and the water in the lake moving back and forth. Now, admittedly, even though I didn't want to say anything, I was getting these really bad vibes. But after thinking for a solid 10 seconds, I snapped myself out of it, and I explained to myself that Angel was just trying to scare us. So, we returned back to talking for another couple of minutes, and then suddenly, we hear more noise. This time, shuffling of leaves on the ground, with branches moving as well. At that point, my friend Ryan gets up with his hunting rifle, and he calls out to whoever might be out there to come out or to leave us alone. The thought of it being a bear did run through our heads, but this was during a time when they were asleep for the winter. Yeah, we were pretty crazy to be out there in the cold ice fishing and sitting next to a campfire, but we aren't exactly the most normal bunch. Anyway, it's more awkward silence, and finally after what felt like an eternity, we do see a figure move from behind a tree. It was large, one of the tallest people I'd ever seen. More details are revealed about them as a man wearing a balaclava hiding his identity walks out with his hands up in the air, telling us not to shoot and that he was just passing by. He looked like a normal guy to me, and even though I was having these strange thoughts in my head, why wear a balaclava out in the woods? I mean, it was cold, but still. All finally seemed to have been explained to us, as this complete stranger says he was just out for a walk when he happened to see our campfire and he wanted to make sure that it wasn't accidentally left abandoned. That was an okay explanation, but it didn't explain the fact that he was just staring at us from the darkness. Angel points this detail out, as the man appears to be fidgeting and looking off into the distance behind us, almost as if he was watching out for something, or someone. Well, little did we know that this man wasn't alone, because when we all turn around, there are two other men, both wearing balaclavas with matching dark clothing, holding AR-15s that are now pointed directly at us. We had only one cheap hunting rifle for protection, so you bet when they told us to put the rifle down, we did. By the way, we had some hunting knives too, but what were those going to do for us? The first man who came out of the woods now reveals he's got a pistol, and he's speaking in a very strange and bizarre tone. Best way I could describe it would be like a villain in a movie. Yeah, I know it sounds kinda cheap and lame, but that's the best description I can give. At any rate, here we are, surrounded by all sides by 3 armed men, thinking this was where it all came to an end. At least we were able to spend it together, sharing a pastime we enjoyed, huh? Do you have wallets on you? Any valuables? Hand them over, and no funny business, or you're all dead. No kidding, these 3 were out here in the woods, trying to rob whoever they could find. Well, what other choice did we have? We give them our wallets, not much in them to be honest apart from credit cards and debit cards, and maybe a few dollars, our phones, and I even gave over my nice watch. My buddy handed over his rifle, and we were forced to keep the knives on the ground and not reach for them. Once this quick transaction, if you will, was completed, the man with the pistol says that if we ever told anybody about them robbing us, they would personally hunt us down and silence us for good. They then began to back away moments later, not once turning their backs on us, before finally they disappeared into the night. As you can probably already conclude, we were all terrified. I mean, could you put a blame on us? We pretty much noped out of there, and we ran the half-mile back to my house, where we woke up my sleeping parents. They were scared and worried, but they were glad that we were unharmed. We did end up notifying authorities, and although nothing came up that night, a couple of weeks later, 3 men with similar descriptions and in possession of AR-15s were arrested and connected to a series of home burglaries in the surrounding area. They were luckily able to recover our cell phones, the rifle, and even our wallets too, which by that point the cards had already been cancelled, so luckily they weren't able to be used to make any purchases. So, that's our story about the time we were out in the woods late at night, only to get robbed by 3 armed men. We are so thankful to this day to be very much alive and safe, because honestly, it might have all very much have come to an end had things gone differently. My girlfriend and I were quite bored one weekend, so we decided to come up with something a little bit different. While we could have spent time just hanging out at the house or going shopping, we wanted to instead enjoy a pastime that I have enjoyed ever since I was a young child: going camping in the woods. Now, we actually chose to camp locally, as in the woods that's behind my house. It is very quiet back there, and about a mile in, as the woods form an incline, you do reach a back road that will take you up into the mountains. That's where all the really rich families live, and it's also where we will sometimes take nice evening drives up to, so we can dream about the day we can purchase our own fancy house. That's not really important to my retelling. The only important part is that because there are homes, It's not impossible to stumble into people. It's just really rare. And if it does happen, it's because somebody is walking their dog. With that, let me skip all the boring stuff and fast forward to the evening. My girlfriend and I are inside the tent, and we're cuddled up in our warm blankets watching a movie on my phone. There was a light breeze just outside the tent, whipping the tree branches back and forth, and along with our hot cocoa we had in our thermos, all was peaceful. Eventually, after we finished our movie, we looked at the time and saw it was past 1 a.m. One quick glance at my girlfriend, and I noticed she's on the verge of falling asleep. I was too, but I wanted to use the restroom before I drifted off to bed. So I start to get up, only to get asked by my girlfriend where I was going. I told her I had to go pee, and she says that she had to do the same thing too, but wanted to go back in the house. I understood, so we get out of the tent, exit the woods into my backyard, and we make the quick walk into the house to each take care of our business. As I awaited my girlfriend, I took the opportunity to grab a couple of extra pillows since the ones we had were a little too flat. A minute later, my girlfriend is ready to go, and we begin to walk back. Thus far, nothing interesting, just a young couple about to get some Z's. Then I noticed something. I had forgotten to get my phone off the countertop. I cursed at myself for being so forgetful, and I actually almost just considered leaving it there. But as my girlfriend's phone fell earlier that day and had stopped working, we wanted some form of communication, just in case of an emergency. You just never know. I told my girlfriend to quickly come back with me so we could go get it, but she insisted she'd wait for me inside the tent. Obviously, I didn't want to just leave her by herself, but she said not to worry as she's got the hatchet in the tent for protection, just in case of anything. Plus, she said it's not like I was going to be gone forever. I looked at her eyes, and judging by the fact she's struggling to stand up, she's exhausted and wants to rest. I reluctantly said fine as I pass her the pillows, and then I start to turn around. Not even a few seconds later, something happens that would change our night for the worst. While my back is turned, I hear my girlfriend yell, just like she had seen a ghost or something. "What's wrong? What happened?" I said as I turn around. I don't even get a chance to say much else, because now crawling out of our tent was a half-naked man, and worst off, he's got a hold of our hatchet. My girlfriend booked it toward me as I asked the man who he was and what he was doing out here anyways. Right away, just by the way he spoke and moved, I knew he was either ill or on some powerful drugs, because he started to talk to himself and then swung the hatchet around at nothing. Well, I didn't care for it anymore. I surely wasn't going to try and take it away from him. Instead, I passed the phone to my girlfriend as she starts to call 911. The man continues to swing the hatchet around in the air while we start to back up, and once we think we're a safe distance away from him, he suddenly pulls a 180. He charges at us like a madman, which then sends us running back to the house. Thankfully, we did manage to get inside my house, locking the door in the process, just as he's coming up the back porch steps. What follows was a bunch of yelling and kicking at our door, and then things went silent after 2 minutes. Bear in mind, I had awoken my dad, who together with myself had armed ourselves with handguns in the attempt he tried to break in. The cops did arrive in record time, and what turned out to be a short manhunt led to officers finding the man hiding underneath a back porch in the darkness. He no longer had the hatchet. On the contrary, the hatchet had found a spot, being stuck to the door. We only noticed it until after officers told us it was safe to step out. Talk about scary. My girlfriend had a nervous meltdown, and even I tried really hard not to lose it myself. I mean, it's not every day you get chased at night with your very own hatchet. Yeah, as we figured, the guy wasn't ill, but he was on drugs, which explained why he acted the way he did. Why he was half naked? Not sure. It was pretty chilly that evening, but I guess when you're on such powerful stuff, your body grows accustomed to temperature. Just my thoughts. For context, this is coming from the perspective of a female who was 19 years old at the time. So was my friend. Speaking of which, we were riding our mountain bicycles late one afternoon in 2017, and we decided to head into the woods near my house. There's a trail, roughly 4 miles, that features various forks in the road that will lead you to different trails. One of these forks in the road can be taken to reach my friend Taylor's house, to which we would end up heading toward. My mom would pick me up later that night. Now, before we had started our little adventure, we were aware of the weather. You see, it was forecasted to rain that day, but it wouldn't be until 6 p.m. It was 3:30 p.m., and though there was cloud cover, nothing indicated we would have to worry. We still brought some ponchos, which we kept in our backpacks, just in case. Anyway, we're at around mile 3 of the woods, and lo and behold, Lady Luck has a surprise for Taylor and I. The skies open up, and the floodgates allow for the rain to drench us like we were at a water park. It was a shame, too, because it wasn't even something that started off lightly. It's like 1 second, it's dry. Next thing, bam, we're soaked to the T. By the time we got our ponchos on, it didn't even matter. We just wanted to get to cover, because it was getting really difficult to ride the bicycles with the mud that was forming. Surely, we could wait the rain out somewhere else, right? This was when we remembered that just a short distance ahead, before we reached the exit of the woods, there is a small underpass where an old train used to run above it. Nice, we just need to get there, which is what we quickly did. What a relief once we were in cover, and finally, we got a chance to catch our breath. We were cold, wet, full of mud, and we're just waiting for this rain to disappear so we can get inside Taylor's house. I'd have to take a shower at my friend's house, and she would have to lend me some extra set of clothes. But you know, beats catching a cold. Speaking of things, it didn't take too long for us to realize that we weren't exactly alone. It's not even a minute that we heard somebody clear their throat. We turned our attention toward the dark part of the underpass to our side, and this was when we noticed 2 homeless men just standing there and staring at us with what looked to be like faces of content. It was a bit strange, and we tried to write them off as just some dudes trying to get out of the rain as well. Just ignore them, we thought. They'll mind their own business, and they'll leave eventually. Of course, not the case, because they began to ask us questions like what we were doing out here, and if we would like to come closer to cuddle up with them. A definite no, and I think even they realized saying that would be met with that answer. However, what we didn't expect was what happened next. One of the homeless men reaches down into a backpack, and while my friend and I are starting to back up, considering just riding away, we get quite the shock. Inside that backpack, the guy, of course, has a knife. I'll tell you ladies what, since you two are out here, and we have nothing to do, why don't you take those wet clothes off and spend the next couple of hours with us? No. At that point, we didn't care how wet we were going to get with the rain. We took our chances. We said, the heck with it, and we got on our bicycles and took off. Luckily for us, on the other side of the underpass, it's cement, which made our getaway that much easier, not worrying about getting stuck in mud. Needless to say, we rode all the way to Taylor's house, relieved to have gotten away from some complete and utter creeps. Edit. We did report our encounter, but cops never did catch the two. and nothing was ever heard about people encountering knife-wielding weirdos in that part of the trail. So, I guess that's a good thing. People can be quite strange. I think that's the nice way of putting it. While 99% of the world is like me, just trying to live their ordinary lives in this ever-changing world, you have that small selection of society whose life goal it is to ruin yours. Why? I wish I knew why. Probably because they're lame and they have nothing better else to do. So with that little rant out of the way, I got a story to share with the creepy fox about a time I was out in the woods. So let's begin. For starters, this takes place in the last frontier, Alaska. You know, your distant neighbor from above the lower 48, the one who you seem to forget exists, which in a way I can't really blame you, as not much happens here. We're twice the size of the state of Texas, but we got half the population. You're more likely to encounter trees, or even wildlife such as our bears or moose. Anyway, one summer's day I decided to pack up some camping supplies and head out of the Fairbanks city limits to head toward an area out in the middle of nowhere that I like to camp in to get away from the stress of society. It's off the beaten path, of course, and unless you really take a look, no one's going to see you're out there, which is both a good and a bad thing. Mostly good because you hope you won't have anybody following you. By the way, I wasn't that dumb. I did make sure to tell my dad where I would be, as well as a friend, and I advised them both that if I wasn't back in a couple of days, something had happened to me, and to send a search party. I was also packing during this trip, bringing along my grandfather's hunting rifle, because you just never know out here in the middle of nowhere. So once I found an opening, I get out of my truck, and then I begin to make my tent, a large camouflaged one that has this really nice insulation on the inside, as well as a little plastic opening so I can see outside. A quick setup later, I now proceed to spend the next couple of hours next to my campfire, reading a book, sitting in my recliner seat, drinking coffee, and enjoying the peace and quiet of nature. By midnight, the sun still being out considering this was during the summer months, and of course it's Alaska, I now crawl into my tent, and after listening to some music on my iPod, I settle down as I slowly drift off to dreamland. Fast forward a few hours later, and all the coffee from some hours ago is starting to call me up, if you will. I needed to take a leak. Bad, and nothing was going to stop me from doing so, even if it meant going out into the chilly early morning hours. So I run behind a tree next to the tent and essentially stood there for the next minute, letting the little guy do his thing. As I was wrapping up, I was suddenly startled when I could hear tree branches snapping and leaves brushing against the wind. I remember taking a look behind me, only to quickly duck down when I happened to notice two hunters in their hunting attire and all, walking close by to where my tent was. I had no idea who these two were or how they found me, and part of me was saying to myself, it might be best to remain hidden. I'm so glad that I did, because when they began talking, something seemed a bit off, almost as if this wasn't their first time stumbling into somebody's campsite. I watched from cover as one of the men walks over to my tent, the tallest of the two, as he now opens it up, and then yells at my sleeping bag, advising whoever was in there to wake up. Obviously, no one's in there, and after I happen to notice the one looking in my tent poke at my sleeping bag with his rifle, he laughs, and then he says, I bet he got mauled and eaten by a bear. No laughing matter, dude, but so far it seemed kind of innocent, but strange too. Things escalate when, out of all times, my allergies begin to act up. I let out a quick sneeze. Both men are startled as they then point their rifles in my direction and then start asking who was out there. I didn't know what to do. So without thinking, I told the men I was the guy from the tent and I was just finishing up taking a bad leak. Both of them asked me to come out, and now they say that they have some extra beers and food, and they asked if I wanted to join them. Something about the way they said that, however, was very weird. I saw their half smiles on their faces that pretty much told me that something was seriously up. But it's what I heard next that sent chills. The tallest of the two, in a laughing manner, says, "Come on, it's not like we're going to shoot you or anything." Even if it was a joke, all of my senses were telling me to get out of there in that instant. So instead of walking out to them, I chose to run. No kidding, I booked it like a dog with its tail tucked between its legs. You'd think the men would be like, "Oh man, we might have taken it a little too far and scared them. Come on, let's get going." Nope, that wasn't the case, as I could hear them chasing me and telling me to come back. Let's face it, no one does that, and not for what seemed like an eternity, really only maybe a couple of minutes. Eventually, I reached an opening in the woods, where there is a riverbed and large rocks, and what looked to be like an old shed from back when people used to mine for gold. I chose to quickly jump behind the large rocks, as I was by this point out of breath, and I was too scared that I might have poofed out in the middle of running. The two men reached the opening about 20 seconds after I reached it, and then they began calling out to me and asking where I had gone. This cat and mouse lasts for approximately a minute, and when it seems all is about to end, the tall guy says something that will forever stick with me. I bet if we would have shot him, nobody would have ever found his body. Even if it was a joke, that gave me chills, and it left me traumatized for weeks. These guys found amusement chasing me through the Alaskan wilderness as if I was some sort of rabbit or deer. Anyway, the two men eventually walked off into the woods. As soon, everything went silent. I continued to sit there for another 20 minutes, until I finally had the courage to get out of my hiding spot and get back to my truck. Thank God I didn't encounter the two again, but I did find something else. My tent was burnt to a crisp, along with my sleeping bag, chair, and backpack that were filled with food and supplies. My rifle was broken into pieces. As for my truck, the two scratched the paint with what I guess was a rock, and they wrote out some really vulgar words directed at me. What I had done to these two to deserve this, I'm not sure, but I didn't waste any more time out there. In summary, I had to get my truck fixed, and when I did talk with the police, they told me they would investigate further, but nothing ever did turn up. It sucks too, because that rifle belonged to my grandfather, and it was very special to me, and it was broken beyond repair. I guess if there was one good thing, it's that I came out of that scary ordeal intact, and not being found years later, essentially as a dried out carcass. I think we can all agree that dogs are some of the best companions you can ever have. They're very loving, and not once do they judge you for who you are. You can be an extraordinarily shy person, just like me, and they'll still do all they can to cheer you up and make your day. That's what I love so much about my dog. He's a German Shepherd named Dakota, and he's been by my side everywhere I go. Out with friends, Dakota likes to tag along. Out at the dog park, well duh. And out for my running routine, well, you bet you'll find Dakota there by my side, getting his workout in. This is where we found ourselves in the spring of 2013, when we were out for a run in our local woods up in Michigan. He was 3 at the time. I was 22. By the way, this is from the perspective of a female. So, the time was approximately 4 p.m. It's a warm but comfortable high 70s, and we're halfway through our 2-mile run. We had chosen to stop by a little watering fountain that also has a bowl for dogs to drink water out of, just in case they too become thirsty. As I was filling up the bowl of water, I happened to have heard somebody call out to me. I was unable to see them at first, since I was bent down and I had my back turned against them. But when I looked, I saw an average ordinary looking man. I suck with descriptions, so I'll give you what I remember. He was early 30s, short black hair, skinny, approximately 5'10", wearing sunglasses, and he's got clothing you'd best find in the wintertime. I'm talking about heavy-set sweatpants, large oversized sweater, and military boots. He definitely looked out of place in comparison to what I was wearing, typical running clothing consisting of my plain white t-shirt and some red shorts. I asked him what he wanted, and he just said he was out for a walk when he happened to notice I was all alone. That was a very weird thing for him to say, as I now get interrupted by Dakota, who now begins to bark and growl at this man. "Oh, don't worry, little guy. I'm not going to hurt you," he says as he starts to walk closer, asking if he could take a picture with him. I told him, judging by Dakota's barking, it's probably not the best idea to do so, and he seems to get the hint. I pushed for Dakota to get a drink so we can get a move on, but he wasn't budging. I now see all the hairs on Dakota's back stand up, and he's barking up a storm, presumably trying to get this guy to leave. I'm really sorry about this. We'll be going now. Still, Dakota wouldn't budge. I was starting to get pretty angry because I wanted to get back home and shower so that I could get started on some studying. The man seems to grow visibly annoyed, and he tells me that if I don't get that dog to shut up, he would do so by force. Definitely a huge change from a couple of minutes ago when he was praising Dakota. I once again apologized, and finally it seems like Dakota is starting to move. This movement was just a few inches, because all of a sudden, I saw something that sent shivers down my spine. In the moments I had taken my eyes off of this stranger, I now see he's got a box cutter, and he's telling me to tie that dog up so that we could go have some fun on our own. Not word for word, as I'd rather not repeat the language he used, but that's what he was hinting at. I tried to run, but what happens is that Dakota, with how strong he is, slips out of my grasp holding the leash, and then charges this guy down. I heard a thud of the guy's head hitting the dirt, as the box cutter had now fallen just a short distance from him. The two now begin to wrestle, as Dakota's easily overpowering him, basically tearing him a new one. I, of course, am in shock of everything happening. I'm just standing there thinking to myself, this only happens in movies and in stories. There's no way this could be happening to me, and right in front of me as well. I won't lie to you when I say it seemed as if everything had gone into slow motion. All the noise around me seemed to have become muffled, as I'm letting fear take over my emotions. This lasts for what felt like an eternity, but as my senses start to return, I snap out of my daze, and quickly, I realize I'm not out of danger just yet. That box cutter was still in play, and if I didn't neutralize it out of the equation, forget me. Dakota could be in a lot of trouble. After all, he's putting his life on the line, and he's defending me. He's ensuring that I'll be able to make it to Mom and Dad. So I needed to move, fast. That's why I quickly grabbed the box cutter. Meanwhile, I'm telling the guy to get off my dog, or he was going to get hurt. Apparently, he had no intention of giving up the struggle, as in between his rage, he starts to tell me that he was going to kill me once he got Dakota off of him, and that it was only a matter of time, whatever that meant. Thank God that by some miracle I happened to notice some movement in the distance at this exact moment. There were a group of bicyclists out for what I guessed was their afternoon ride. I quickly jumped, and I waved toward them to grab their attention, as I witnessed a couple of them went to the left and down a hill toward another trail. I feared that perhaps they hadn't noticed me, but luckily one of them does. He calls out to his other group of friends, and they now join us with a look of confusion. Luckily, Dakota didn't go after them, but I was finally able to get him off the man. Speaking of the man, not only did he have a pretty nasty bite mark on him that saw him shedding some blood, but the guy doesn't even stick around. He just booked it, probably realizing that his chance to get me out in the middle of nowhere had now come to an end. You see, I was fearing that he might have tried to make something up and tell the group that we were the ones who have started this all, and Dakota had attacked him on purpose. But no. Anyway, Dakota finally seemed to calm down as I'm patting his head and saying, "Good boy," as I now begin to explain to the group of bicyclists what had happened and how thankful I was for them to have been in the right place at the right time. Well, at least I tried to speak to them to the best of my ability. I was practically gasping for air with how anxious and scared I was. Poor Dakota was still whining and full of emotions himself. After all, he had just had quite a scary encounter with a complete stranger. After my adrenaline dump and getting escorted back to the parking lot, I met with cops to explain about what had happened and the exact location of where I had last seen the creep. They told me they would investigate and they would call me back if there were any updates. I did receive an update later on. The good news: the guy was caught and arrested in connection to various armed assaults and also being in possession of illegal narcotics. Hearing of his arrest was a huge stress relief, knowing that a dangerous criminal was now off the streets. As an edit to my submission here, Dakota is still very much with me today, and we still go out into nature. However, we don't run as much, choosing to walk instead as he's a bit older and slower too. No other scary incidents like this have ever happened to me again, and let's hope it remains that way forever. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for watching today's episode, friends. As always, if you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like rating, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you thought, and if you are brand new around here and you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it. That way you'll be notified of any and all future uploads coming here to the Creepy Fox. Also, if you like to enjoy early access to the new uploads, as well as an ad-free viewing experience, then check out the channel memberships option. It's a great way to support the channel, and of course, as you heard, get early access and no interruptions when listening to these videos. This option will be available for all channel members, regardless of membership level. So give it a try for a month and see what you think. If you don't like it, you're more than welcome to cancel at any time. Speaking of no interruptions, normal viewers can enjoy this as well. After the videos are finished with early access, they'll be available as premieres, and during the premieres, you'll be able to enjoy the videos without any advertisements and without any interruptions either. And the best part is we can all come together to listen to the stories live, as I answer your questions and we interact with each other. Talk about a swell time, wouldn't you say? But anyways, that's enough of me plugging all that stuff. How are all of you doing? Right now I'm recording this on December 14th. The plan is to go ahead and edit and upload this. I'll have it uploaded for Thursday for everybody else. I'll have it as a premiere that day, and tomorrow I'll have it as early access. After this, I'll take a couple of days off, and then next week we'll go ahead and we'll see what kind of other topic we want to do. Definitely want to try to at least get maybe 2 more scary stories videos up. I still don't know what kind of stories. Again, it's just kind of difficult because I don't really get as many stories anymore, so I pretty much just try to do whatever topics and kind of stories I get. Luckily, I had these wilderness stories, so I was able to make a topic video on just wilderness stories. The last time I did a wilderness stories video, solely on wilderness stories, it's actually been all the way back since 2020 of March. So it's been quite a while. And so I'm glad I was able to do these sorts of stories in just one topic themed video. One thing you definitely can expect being uploaded though would be my animation episode. I that should be out next week. I'll let you all know if anything comes up, but yeah, that should be out next week. I want to release that on Christmas Day. Chances are how it would work then was you would get, you'll get your schedule and scary stories video during the week, maybe on, I don't know, Christmas Eve or something. And then, yeah, Christmas Day, you'll get the animation episode, which I'm really excited for all of you to see. And then the week after that would be another episode. And then we start 2022, and hey, another year of scary stories. That's so awesome, though, that, all this time you've been here supporting me. Some of you have been here for just a couple of weeks. Others have been here for a couple of years. Others have been here since the beginning that I've started to upload stories videos. So thank you. Thank you to everybody who sends in their stories. Thank you to everybody who allows me to share their experiences on these videos. Because at the end of the day, as you all know, I'm just the narrator. I love being able to share your stories, but as you know, this is all due in part to all of you amazing people, which I'm really excited to be looking forward to 2022, because at the rate things are going, we're definitely going to be reaching 100,000 subscribers. I can't believe that. I mean, when I first started this, I never even thought I'd break even like 1,000 subscribers. So to see almost 100,000 awesome people here, it's just truly awesome. And it's not my accomplishment, it's our accomplishment. Just because, all of us together have come together to form this little family, if you will. Well, I guess it's kind of a big family, but you get what I'm trying to say here. So, when we get that plaque, that's going to be something that's going to be dedicated not to me, but to all of you. Dedication to everything that you've all done for me, supporting me throughout the years and being there for me through all the good times and the bad times too. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you to my channel members, Robbie, Haiti, Ingrid, Spunky the Nutcase, Bo, Rice and Beans, Scott, Sean, Blazed Goddess, Mandy, and Corey. And of course, as we all know, thank you to all the regular viewers who leave their comments, subscribe, share the videos with friends and families. Honestly, as I tell you all, just doing that helps and goes a long way. Okay, so that's gonna go ahead and do it for real. I will talk to all of you next time. Take care and have yourself an amazing day.